Hello everyone, this is Vanguard Kitty, and I'm actually going to be presenting to you a deck profile for my Undercover deck post set 9. And I know it's been quite a while since I've uploaded, and school does that too, and I got a lot of stuff going on now, but at least I got some spare time to show perhaps my main deck that is most updated for the time being. And yeah, this is gonna be at least most up to date to set 9, which is the most latest set in English. So yeah, without further ado, we're gonna just get on to the deck profile. First off is the ride line, and we're sticking to the native variant because it's the only one right for this deck. The G1 and G2 help search out our order, which is the monitored Triss, to ensure that we're already good to go to put them into order zone, plus being the best ditch fodder due to the fact that it can be played from drop. Not gonna forget our right deck Crest for energy as well. And our main boss here is, of course, Mordalion with 3 skills. The first being a continuous 5k power boost to all undercover units during your turn if you have at least 3 monitored Triss. Second is an act once per turn to EB2. Look at the top 7 to refill your undercover gauges. And last being on attack, CB1 to call up to 2 undercover gauges to a column for multi-attack. So the main premise of the deck is being able to farm undercover gauges for to our order zone, and it acts as a second hand, which now can be interacted with thanks to a new grade 1 from set 9. Prior to that, we really didn't have other ways to actually get cards from the gauge zone to hand, because if we needed certain cards not in hand, it was in the gauge zone instead to help fix our formation. Mordalion allows refuel and multi-attack for the deck, and once we reach Persona, the numbers just get higher since it's a 15k boost to all front row undercover units, and also an additional 5k to our best attacker in the back row center. Moving to our main deck now. Just move stuff for a moment. We have... Let's kind of move it a little bit. Of course, we're going to be playing 3 Personas, as we should. And focus in our aforementioned best back row attacker, obfuscate at 3. 4 felt too clunky for me during early plays, so I bumped him down to 3. Bumped him down to 3, and so far it has been better. Obby here has 3 skills, much like Mordalion. First, being able to call himself from the gauge zone via Soul Blast 1 to the back row center rear, and having a permanent 10k boost to himself on rear, and in general is his best power boost just by himself. Now the last skill, on attack from the back row center. If no drives were performed by your other rears and your opponent is at grade 3, you can Soul Blast 1 to let him perform a drive check, and he will bot deck himself at the end of battle. It essentially contradicts with Amartinoa, which is the Cater Nation OT, in a way that you need to not have before rear drives at all. And in all honesty, Amartinoa was not the ideal OT for this deck entirely, which I'll explain later on. Obby here will always be at the center back row for his full effect, but he can be a big beater still in the front since you're on Persona. You basically bump him to like 38k base alone. I do have one other grade 3, which is Zoe here, but he will be replaced by a Union of the Sky that a friend of mine will be giving at a later date, so he really is just a filler more than anything. He is only useful for matchups that mass retire, like Bobs, Varga, and Gandiva, but he is a good beater nonetheless if I see him. That's all for the grade 3s. Let's move on to the grade 2s. Starting it off with our set order, which is a 4 of monitored Triss, which is the backbone for the whole deck, acting as our second hand as mentioned before. On play, look at the top 7 cards of your deck and put one face down as an undercover gauge, then shuffle. You can technically put any card, but you will always choose undercovers in the end. It can be played from drop as well, making it the best ditch fodder as I said just earlier. And the gauges themselves are only known to the Undercover player because they are private knowledge as face down cards. Moving on to the next grade 2, we got Dara at 4. Our top 5 searcher lets us choose any Undercover unit or a Shadow Paladin unit from the top 5, which in turn correlates to our Sentinels. To our Sentinels being Ezra from Luward. Searchable PGs is possible for this deck, which is just great in general, and with a pure Undercover build, you're not bound to whiff the top 5. And yeah, you shouldn't miss if you're on a pure Undercover build. She used to be rather pricey in the past because of Luward. Now thankfully it's just gone down enough to not put a dent on your wallet if anyone is looking to build a deck. Also a good attacker with her second skill, giving a 10k boost with a Soul Blast, but limited to your opponent being at grade 3 to keep her fair. Our next and only other grade 2, the previous, quote, new guy from set 6 a while back, we got Genix at 4. Fixed 2 major issues the deck had prior being Soul and Counterblast. At the end of the battle he attacked, you put all of yours into Soul from the same column to draw a card, and the option to Energy Blast 3 and Countercharge 1. Now this is not spammable, since the wording if you did not Countercharge 1, you basically cannot use 2 of them the same turn, and also for a good reason, because you just be eating like 6 energy. Although do be careful with managing CB and energy still, because there have been times where I got too greedy and didn't have enough energy for the CC. Genix for a double rare, mind you, seriously feels like a triple rare with how we managed to fix 2 major issues prior to set 6, and I'm really happy we got them. Now let's move on to our grade 1s. Okay, now onto our grade 1s. We're playing almost all of them at 4 except for 1, starting with the new double rare from set 9, Viola. I utterly refuse to say her localized name because it actually sucks. So Viola here, much like Genix, fix another problem the deck had, which was needing to see a 3rd set order as early as your opening hand. On plays, you either EB2 to mill a monitored Triss from the deck, or Counterblast 1 to reveal a gauge and add it to hand if it's an Undercover unit. Now this calls back to the set order, letting you put any card as a gauge, but with Viola specifically, it needs to be an Undercover unit. This does mean we can put a Persona, for example, early, and this can allow us to put it back to hand with Viola for as a cost of Counterblast. A very, very good card, can't ask for more. Now the next is going to be Tigris, which is the deck's Recycler and a 10k shield grade 1, by which when it's put on Guardian Circle, you put an Undercover unit from the drop to the bottom deck. And although he does eat up energy because of his bounce skill, he comes in handy a lot because being a 10k shield can make quite the difference in Standard. Calling back to how I got too greedy with energy, I tend to call a Genix and a Tigris column, and deciding wisely if I can afford the CC and a 10k shield to hand. Because Genix still actually works if, say, you bounce Tigris, and Genix souls himself in due to the skill wording. It is rather situational for me to choose whether or not I should bounce Tigris, and there have been moments of too much greed, admittedly. Still a good grade 1, but definitely something replaceable in the future. Now our last normal Undercover unit for the main deck, which is a main deck Onyx. I chose her mainly for consistency and the name, and for lack of better options. This slot could have been used for, say, Obligator Dragon, which was the tech option equivalent to Viola prior to set 9 to ensure 3 set orders, because you would on call discard 1 to search an order and put it drop. And I will say now, I will utterly refuse to run Sir Gaon in this slot. A, because I can't realistically afford it. B, I generally dislike it for this deck. Some will argue that it, quote, adds more consistency. I say to that, respectively, the deck doesn't ride or die with it at all. I played Undercover ever since set 3, and we got Sir Gown, and I've been doing fine, just fine without it. Sir Gown, I will say now, Sir Gown is an overrated card for this deck, and I will stand by that. And the last grade one, of course, is our searchable PGs. I'm rather thankful she got reprinted as a PR, which made her a lot more accessible without needing to buy the lower deck set just for her. You can run Elementaria, but it's overall better to stick all normal unit PGs for consistency. Can't speak words. That is it for our normal units. Let's move on to the triggers. Okay, we are playing good old 8 crit. Oh, where you are? 8 crit just for maximum lethality. You can run all vanilla crits just fine as well. I just so happen to be given 2 effect crits by a friend. And now we're moving to 3 shield fronts, because this deck really digs through its pieces a lot, and running draws will just get you closer to decking out more than anything. And the fact Mordalion's attacking number will always be just an 18 to 28k boost without a booster, so pulling a front helps a lot when you add a 2 to pass by the opponent. Now for the OT, I actually chose Daylight OT for the board wipe aspect, because Undercover doesn't really have removal in general. Plus, against certain matchups, if you wipe their board, it's difficult for them to rebuild. Like, not all decks would have effective ways to create a board again. If you pull this early too, it's a +4 to hand if your opponent has an empty field, because you draw for every 2 open circles, including the Guardian Circle. If you want a 9th crit, blue OT is always nice, and getting a card back from drop. Red OT could work, since you will always have a field and standing rares, but you can't do Obi's drive skill twice because he bought decks himself if you do use it on his first swing. I mentioned how Martinoa contradicts how Obi works before, and here's my thoughts on it. Martinoa, in general, has become one of the less used Nation OTs, once better Cray Elemental OTs were made, case in point, one Daylight being one of them. Cater simply doesn't rely on him anymore like in the past. Although, if you really can't afford any of the better Cray Elemental OTs, aside from Olbaria, of course, if and only if that's the case, you can run a Martinoa. And good old 4 vanilla heals to finish it off. You could run effect heals depending on your meta, but for me, I just stick to normal vanillas. And that's my deck profile for Undercover Post Set 9. A really fun and consistent deck, one that doesn't rely on a certain generic grade 1 that is overrated, and more or less budget friendly if you can afford Dara. They definitely can use better grade 1s, and that's one of my hopes for future support. Hope you all enjoyed this deck profile. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good one, folks. See y'all!